Welcome to Master the Game. I am Juice, and this is day 16 of RPGaDay 2021. Today's word is tribute, so let's get started. So yesterday we talked about supplement, and if you wanted to jump into a module run by me, then you can head over to my Patreon, where we have a lot of different reward tiers, but one of them includes playing in a campaign with me. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, head on over to Patreon where you can do that. Also, if you have any further questions about that, you can head on over to my Discord, link in the description. So today's word is tribute. Now, this is something that I really love to do. I am somebody that I take all the old games I've played and I incorporate them into my homebrew world. Some of those games weren't even in my homebrew world. I've taken characters from Pathfinder campaigns. I've taken characters from Forgotten Realms campaigns, from D&D 5e, characters I've played, characters other people have played, and I have taken them and immortalized them inside my homebrew world in a variety of ways. I had a group that we played back about 7 years ago, and they were kind of playing through Hoard of the Dragon Queen. I had taken a lot of inspiration from the encounters in there and some of the story, and I had mixed it with some of my own homebrew stuff. The idea was there was a group of about 8 different evil factions that made up one overall large faction. One of those was the Cults of the Dragon. Another was a necromancer and his undead army, and so on. Now, the party had only gotten to a point where they were dealing with the necromancer as well as the Cults of the Dragon. And in the process of doing so, they knew that these factions were coming together. They were known as the 8 Pillars of Death, which in my homebrew setting has become its own faction of sub-factions. And it's basically an alliance that the bad guys make occasionally to work together in order to overthrow the kingdoms and establish a foothold. And with the plan being that upon completing their mission, they will then divide up the lands between the 8 evil factions and reign, rule in terror kind of thing. Now, the party in that first campaign, which actually I was running 2 parties through this at the same time, the one party I've immortalized in my world. There's statues in the capital of this continent at Stonehall Keep, where there are statues of these various characters. And it was really cool because I played in another campaign set on the same continent about 80 years in the future, where the original 8 Pillars of Death did not overthrow the kingdoms and actually were defeated. And the players found out about this a little more in depth as they came across the statues at Stonehall Keep. And the great thing is, one of my players in that game was my wife, who played in that original one. And when I told her of the statues, her character wasn't there, or wasn't discussed. When I told her about the statues, she recognized, wait, isn't that from our other game? And I was like, yeah. And she loved it. She just lit up and thought it was so cool. And this new group was also trying to stop the 8 Pillars of Death from doing the very same thing. And this group was trying to unite the different kingdoms who had fallen out of favor with each other. There were rivalries. And so they were delivering treaties, these contracts basically from a treaty many years back to all the different kingdoms to try and unite them again to stop the 8 Pillars of Death. And so it was really cool. But I've done this with various one-shots I've run where I've had characters immortalized. I had a group that we never played. We were doing session 0. We were trying to come up with schedules for everybody. And we did it on this channel. This was going to be a streamed game, actually. And we came up with a faction, or the group was basically going to try and destroy magic items throughout the campaign. They weren't going to keep any of them unless, they're especially interesting to them. But they were going to destroy the magic items on an anvil. And one of the guys was a Svirfneblin gnome that had a deity that didn't like magic items. And that's what kind of started the idea. And so they were going to have an anvil that they smashed these items on. And I came up, I think it was maybe it was somebody else, but we decided to come up with the name Anvil Ringers. Well, the Anvil Ringers, based on that very loose idea from a session 0, I've fleshed out into a full-on faction. There's ranks. There's like rules. There's an oath that you have to swear by to be part of it. It's very secretive. You get invited into the faction by an agent that's at a certain tier, and you don't know a lot about the faction even upon joining it. You only know a little bit, and as you move up, you learn more, and and all this stuff. And I've shared this document with my patrons. So again, if you want to see this, let me know. Join my Patreon, and you can have access to this document. But it goes over all of it. It's a few pages, and in my opinion, it's really interesting. I haven't seen a lot of factions done this way, and again, to me, it inspires a lot of like adventure ideas and how you can do things. The faction, on the surface is not good nor evil. Each person who joins it will have their own reasons and motivations. They just have to follow the rules. And one of those rules, for example, is that a member of the faction who outranks them can tell them to hand over a magic item just in the moment. So like say you're we'll just call it a tier 1 right now. I'm not going to go over the ranks, but say you're a tier 1 and you found this +1 sword. You're like, oh, I don't have a magic weapon. I'm going to use this. And you use it, and you come across another anvil ringer that is a higher tier than you. And they look at you and they say, hand over your sword. You have to give them your sword, or you will be kicked out of the anvil ringers. So that's one of the tenets of it. And this, for me, if I decided that if my players want to play in this campaign as this group, this will allow me to give them magic items pretty freely. It'll allow me to take magic items away from them freely. It'll also allow me to put magic items in the world to let them make choices if they want them. Now, one of the things about this is if they are not using a magic item or have no intention of using it, it has to get destroyed. One of the rules of the anvil ringers is they don't hoard magic items. They won't just hold on to them. Like if they have something, they use it. And if they don't use it, it gets destroyed. So that's kind of how it works. And again, they don't know why this is the way it is, but it is that way. And if they are found out about hoarding, a senior member might do something about it, or might say something about it, or might ask for the magic item in front of them and smash it in front of them. A lot of stuff could happen, and I think it could lead to a lot of fun stories. But with that, this again goes back to tribute. So I've got a bunch of players that have played in my campaigns. I've probably ran for hundreds of people. Some of the characters I have kept in a binder. I've got a binder for my homebrew world. I've put these characters' character sheets in there, whether my players have submitted a copy to me, or just even campaign notes. All my campaign notes are in this one binder, so that I can eventually flesh them out and work these characters into the lore. Maybe it was a magic item they had that I want to put back into the world. Well, now that magic item has a story associated with it, and possibly some mechanical differences based on the person who wielded it. These are all things that, to me, are my tributes. And if I ever play with these people again and they come across these stories, and they'll recognize it. And to me, that's really cool. I know if I was playing in a campaign with a DM, maybe it's the 3rd, 4th campaign I played with them, if they did something like this, and they had like a really fun lore or story around this, this thing, and then I'm like, wait, that's my character, I would think that was cool. So that's why I do this. So anyways, that's how I'm going to wrap it up there. Would love to hear your thoughts about tributes to your players. Let me know what you do, if you do anything. We're going to end it right there, though. This was Master the Game. I am Juice. Game on.